We're continuing our conversation with local author and businessman Ray Carey, who authored the book Democratic Capitalism. Ray, today, with our voter turnout at less than 50%, does this square with your notion that we have to have a participative, empowered populace? How do you feel about this in terms of this low voter turnout, and how could we turn that around with democratic capitalism? Or do we even need to?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
It's those non-voters that, if they understood democratic capitalism better, they'd be saying it's within our power to change the system. And the reason they're not voting, it really is the essence of this segment. They don't have much to vote for. There's, on both sides of the equation, they do not have an agenda, and people, unfortunately, have not been educated in these matters sufficiently to get mad and to use their votes and reform their system. So I think the only way they can protest is to stay home. Now, that would be particularly true of young people. And the corollary of that is if we have allowed force and violence to dominate the world, and we certainly are in the middle of that right now, the idea of economic common purpose almost sounds naive. I don't think it is. I think it's very close to being a pragmatic alternative. But the young people see the violence on the part of their leaders, and some would say, I hate that expression, when they see war and violence, say, well, that's human nature. I don't believe it. People are not instinctively ready to hurt each other. That gets into the Hobbesian nonsense that some of our leaders are predicting. But I think if there was an economic system that is spreading wealth, if the distribution was broad, if there was not the concentration of wealth, which is at the record levels, in due time, our people, our young people, would begin, wouldn't be an event that you could watch, but our people would start getting a sense of idealism again. So more importantly,
yes,
excuse me, but the young people in Muslim countries are the ones particularly that we should be concerned about, them being able to view a rising standard of living and evidence of a moral system and evidence of a nation whose priority is spreading that wealth, not using force and violence to impose their will.
Do you think
that's a longer subject than we have time
yes,
for today?
Well, we can come back to that another day. But Ray, do you think that the reason for voter apathy is a benign voter apathy, where the voters do not realize the benefits of alternative economic theories, or even the concept of democratic capitalism in any of its colloquial phrases, right? That would suffice. Or is it more of an overt act on voters who are just displeased and feel left out? And or is there a third option that I'm not seeing right now? What's the reason for voter apathy on an economic basis?
I'm not sure. I would think with older voters it's a disenchantment, and with younger voters it's an apathy. They just never saw anything that arrested their interest or stimulated their idealism. And I have some comments on that as we go on.
Now, the whole idea of perhaps a democratic idealism is something that you think we need more of today, or is not part of the equation?
Absolutely. When we get into the hypothesis 8 on the universities, I'll compare some of the famous professors that...
and I will look forward to that.
So we'll get into
our next segment. We've only got a few minutes left. Our next segment is something we call, something you call, truth-seeking is a team sport. Would you give us about 30 seconds of a lead-in on that, Ray?
Yes.
A teaser.
There's an example in there of Robert McNamara, a major architect of Vietnam, Secretary of Defense.
Yep. During the Vietnam
And when he
War.
retired and was later head of the World Bank, then you could almost follow his agonizing reappraisal over the years. And I give him credit. He never let up on himself. He kept, as I said earlier, trying to peel the onion to find out what the real reason was.
His critical self-evaluation of his life and the life of others around him in his time.
And in his last, I think it was his last book, co-written, Wilson's Ghost, Woodrow Wilson.
Marvelous book.
He finally came up and said, in effect, we didn't know what we were doing. We were all suffering from the same cultural conditioning, and you don't come up with good answers if you're part of a team that doesn't have the cultural and the discipline diversity. So you have people that say, you're full of you-know-what for the following reasons. And he admitted that, and he said that they didn't know what a nationalist Ho Chi Minh was. They didn't know that he'd quoted verbatim from the Declaration of Independence when he, in his inaugural. They just made him 90% communist, 10% nationalist, when the reverse was the reality.
So very controversial. Our next topic then will be truth-seeking is a team sport. Sounds to me like we're going to be talking about the notion of groupthink, warping reality to shape the group's vision as they see it.
The key thing, and of course some would argue, starting with me, that we didn't learn anything from what McNamara provided, because we immediately repeated the error.
I look forward to this in our continuing series. Where Ray calls it truth-seeking is a team sport, and I do hope you'll join us in our continuing series with local author Ray Carey, who wrote the book Democratic Capitalism, The Way to a World of Peace and Plenty. Thank you very much, Ray. We appreciate it.